Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cash Some Young. And today we are hosting a special session titled Special Guests, Special Care. The conversation is dedicated to raising awareness, fostering understanding, and encouraging greater acceptance of children with special needs and families who support them every day. We are honored to have Mr. Mario Fonseka as our special guest, who is a devoted father of a remarkable child who has achieved three world records and despite facing different challenges. Mr. Fonseca himself is a dean in a accomplished university in UAE and whose professional journey offers valuable insights into resilience, determination, and unconditional love. The purpose of today's conversation is to shine a light on those children who are deeply, engrossed with the society, but often overlooked by them. We will discuss the extraordinary commitment required of parents and caregivers who frequently invest twice the time, the resilience, the patience, the energy, and the resources to help the children thrive. From therapies and specialized education of emotional support and financial commitments, this journey is one of the unwavering dedication. At the same time, we believe that the responsibility doesn't end here. The families are who are working with them, we should support them. The society we live in must become more inclusive, compassionate, and accepting. Every child deserves opportunity and a sense of belongingness, and we should recognize their abilities as well. So, without wasting much time and without much ado, I should welcome Mr. Mario Fonseca. Hi, Mario, and thank you for joining CTY.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mario. So, let's start with your experience and introduce yourself, please, about all these questions and answers before we started.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Mario Fonseca. I'm originally from Sri Lanka.
Hmm.
So I have a family of three myself, my wife, and my son, who's now, he'll be turning 20 later this year. So today's discussion would be more or less around, him and his journey and his growth and our involvement in that.
Hmm.
So, uh, his name is Jaden Fonseca, and like you said, he currently holds three mental math world records.
Yeah.
Two of them in the area of root extraction, and the other one in the area of addition.
Hmm.
So that's like I wouldn't say that's like the ultimate fruits, but these are some of the fruits along the way that we have been able to reap. But
Correct.
this started way back
Hmm.
when he was 3 years and 3 months,
Hmm.
when he was first diagnosed as a high functioning autistic child.
Okay.
I'll tell you the story as well that might be of interest because sometimes we need to be, what's the right word? Aware probably is the right word.
Hmm.
What happened was this one day when I went to pick him up from, he was in nursery or as they call it, KG, kindergarten.
Yeah.
The teacher, when she brought him to me,
Hmm.
she said, Jaden has some behavior which I don't think it's autism. Like that, she just mentioned the word autism. And at
Hmm.
that point, you introduced me as a learned person, but at that point, I actually had not heard that word.
Hmm.
I thought, what? Say what? Autism? I didn't know what that meant, okay, honestly. And she didn't say he has. She said, I don't think it is. But then I was wondering, what is she thinking that it is not? And then when I went home, I mean, obviously I Googled and found out. And then I kind of knew very quickly what this kind of meant. And then we had seen certain behavior in him,
Hmm.
which, when a child is 3 years, 3 months old, you sometimes put things to, okay, he's having delayed growth, or, things like that. You try to rationalize it. Now,
Hmm.
suddenly, we were questioning. And then what happened was we quickly found out a child psychiatrist who was at that time actually probably the number one ranked in Sri Lanka. And we were
Hmm.
fortunate to get an appointment that day evening.
Okay.
And something I did before I went to see the doctor was I thought rather than me try to explain what we find different,
Hmm.
um, I took a video. Actually, I took two videos. Without his
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, when he was playing, certain
Hmm.
things that we thought was slightly different to what should be his developmental, achievements at that stage. I took two videos, and then in the evening, I showed them
Hmm.
at least one whole video. It was long, about 5, 6 minutes each one.
Okay.
So the doctor watched one of them, and then
Hmm.
she asked me, "What do you think?" I actually didn't expect that. I said, "Doctor, I don't want to tell you what I think. I am no expert, but I want to know what you think." Then
Hmm.
she said, "It is what you suspect. He is high functioning autistic child."
See, 20 years
Um,
back, I guess it was a rare word actually, to
yeah.
describe children
So,
like that.
as in about 17 years old. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean 17 years back. This was
Uh-huh.
when he was 3 years, 3 months. Now he's turning 20.
20.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Hmm.
I mean he's still close to 20 years. So that was the start. That was the start.
Okay.
At that point, we actually, neither of us, myself, my wife, I asked my wife, "Do you know what this is?" She says, "No, I have not heard this word." So from that point, I mean, to date, now for me to talk about it, like I don't call myself an expert, but I would say we are parents who have gone through a lot of experiences. Of course,
Hmm.
we have learned a lot of stuff, not necessarily in a classroom environment, but by doing a lot of
Hmm.
research and talking to people, talking to lots of different people.
Hmm.
Um, so I hope some of that we will be able to share today and
Sure.
help other parents who are going through similar scenarios.
Correct. Yeah, here in India as well, Meadow, I know few families who are having children with special abilities. So actually targeting them, even if I say, because I have seen those children since childhood and I know how they and their parents have gone through. So I just thought ki I should, quickly do a session about that. And so we met and we talked about that. So, Mario, I have a question like, what would be the single most point in helping a special need child to reach the fullest potential?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, now this point that I'm going to say, I'm not saying is the most important, because some parents
Hmm,
might listen to this and say, okay, this does not apply to us because we are too late. But if
hmm,
it's not, this is very critical. And that is what therapists refer to as early intervention. Early intervention is very useful.
hmm,
The younger you intervene, the
hmm.
easier. You see, younger children are like molds of clay. It's easier to mold them.
Yeah,
The older
correct.
they get fixed in their ways, then it's
Hmm,
more difficult. So therapy is effective, but it's more effective when you administer them to younger children. So
okay.
that is one of the things. So that's where, like, we were lucky, because when the teacher said that, he was 3 years, 3 months,
Hmm,
and our intervention started from then. And that is why, um, one of the main reasons why we have been able to achieve significant improvements in him. But that doesn't mean that, if you have a child who's older, okay, then it's too late for me. No, it's not like that. But it's just more effective when you start it young. And the other very most important thing, I think, is correct diagnosis. You
current
see,
diagnosis.
the
Yeah.
special needs children, although we like to group them as one group, it's not really one group. Yes, it is
Hmm,
one group in one sense, but there are different categories. I'm
hmm,
sure you have heard of ADHD,
yeah.
then autistic, Asperger's. So you see, there are
Hmm,
the dyslexic. So there
hmm,
are different kinds of scenarios. So correct diagnosis is important. So this is
hmm,
where you need to first get the right people involved,
hmm,
and maybe not just go by one opinion.
hmm.
I would suggest get two, three, even four opinions. And then you also can, as parents, actually, there's nobody else who knows your child better than you, because you're the one who spends the most amount of time.
Yeah.
So then, and like when they make those sometimes diagnose, if you think, no, that's not exactly what it is, you can give your input. So I think over a series of such, diagnostic approaches, you
Hmm,
need to identify exactly what is the scenario. And also, it's not only the label. You see, when I say diagnosis, I also mean something like this. You see, now, for example, if you take autistic children, some
hmm,
children are sensitive to certain things like sound and
Hmm.
light. Now, when I say light,
Okay.
I'm talking about this fluorescent light kind of thing.
Fluorescent light.
Now,
Yeah.
let me maybe explain that because some people may not understand what I mean by that.
Hmm.
Now, our human eye can detect when something happens, I mean, slower than 1/20th of a second. Okay.
Hmm.
Uh, Normal people cannot detect anything that happens faster than that. Some of
Hmm.
these autistic children who are hypersensitive to light,
Hmm.
they recognize things faster than that. So therefore, the fluorescent light for us, which is lit all the time, is
Hmm.
not lit all the time for them. It's like a discotheque. It's coming on, going off, coming on, going off,
Hmm. Hmm.
because that's actually what's happening there. Normal people cannot, detect that because our eyes do not detect anything that works faster than that. So
Hmm.
that's one thing. And the other one is extreme sound. I mean,
Okay.
none of us like extreme sound, but we have a tolerance level. But some
Hmm.
of these hypersensitive kids, they are not able to do that. Now, actually, Jaden did have a little bit of that on the sound side. But I'll
Okay.
tell you what my wife did today. He does not have that issue at all. And he's like
Hmm.
any one of us. But when he was younger, noises that we could not handle,
Hmm.
I mean, what we, I mean, we were okay with.
Hmm.
He was not okay with. Now, for example, thunder. Everybody gets scared, but I'm not talking about the getting scared part. I'm talking about whether you can tolerate or like you feel distressed by it. So there are things like that. Yeah. So,
So,
like for example, we'll say somebody's doing some work at home, drilling.
hmm.
Most of us
The
can
noise
handle that.
is.
I mean, we
Hmm.
don't like it, but we can handle it. But these kids
Correct.
cannot. So then some kids are also, they are sensitive towards certain food. Now, gluten, food that has
Yeah.
gluten.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is you need to rule out everything that is not affecting your child. So that's something we did. You know,
So, Mario, as you told that you
we
recognized.
checked to see whether
Mm-hmm. Please continue. Yeah.
uh, I recognize what the sound thing.
Hmm.
No, I didn't
Yeah.
quite understand your question. What did you say?
No, no, I have not started anything. I was just about to ask you something.
Okay,
Ki,
okay, right. So, I mean, no, no, I thought you said something about did we recognize it or something like that. So, anyway, what I'm trying
hmm.
to say is it's not, when I say diagnosis, I'm not only saying that you need to identify whether it's ADHD, whether it's autism, not only that.
Hmm.
Autism also is a spectrum. That means
Hmm.
there are different kinds of kids. And the
Hmm.
things that bug one child is not what bugs another child. Plus,
Correct.
the areas of skill that
Yeah.
you struggle with
Hmm.
is also not the same. So when I say diagnosis, I'm talking about a very holistic thing. It's not just like a diagnosis like saying, okay, your child is autistic. No, not like that. A little bit more detail. Okay, for it's a spectrum. Where is my child? What
Hmm.
is particularly affecting my child? Because then only can you have the right interventions. Because
Correct.
then only whatever you do will be effective. If not, you will be doing stuff which are not required. Whereas you may not be doing stuff that are required. So that's one of the learnings we had.
So, Mary, when you told about that at the age of 3 or little more, the teacher recognized it, and then they, told you about the thing about the autism and all. So, what is my thought is like, is this the right age to identify the children? Because when your child is growing day by day, maybe by a year or so, that would be the, I guess, it could be the first, example, or would be the first thing when we can just identify that our child or children are not behaving properly or are lacking somewhere. So what is the definition of early recognition?
Well, the thing is this. You see, if you talk to a pediatrician, the
Hmm.
pediatrician will tell you that there are what I call developmental milestones. At this age, the child should be able to do this. At this age, you
Hmm.
should be able to do this. So
Yeah.
that's one, uh, place from where you
Parameters.
can
Huh.
get information. Is my
Okay.
child able to do what he or she is supposed to be doing at that age? So
Mm-hmm.
now, for example, one of the triggers that we had that way was he was a late speaker. But
Hmm.
late speaking is not autism. I mean, there are children who
Hmm.
just speak late.
Yeah.
So, but it could be. So
Hmm.
when you have multiple of such, symptoms, then you need to, explore a little bit more. So one way is to identify that, because I don't think there's a particular age at which, okay, that's the point at which is called early detection, or anything later than that is later detection. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think it's like that. But developmental milestones can be a, framework to
Mm-hmm.
which you can check to see whether my child is, because as long as those are met, that means, you're ticking boxes, and then there's no, reason for concern. So parents generally check this. I mean, when you visit a pediatrician itself, a pediatrician also checks this with you to see whether, the child is developing as they should. So I think that's a good starting point.
Okay. So, Mario, the other question is, is the society is becoming more accepting of children with special needs? Because you have been into two different countries, in few decades. So, what changes have you seen, and what is your advice to the, changing situations?
Yeah, like first of all, as you said, I think the awareness that is built in, say current years is greater
Mm,
than, say, 15, 20 years ago. Plus,
correct.
I see
Yeah.
a difference in, I mean, in the state of the country also. Now, for example, in Sri Lanka, the awareness of this, I mean, overall, as a country,
Mm,
I would say is lesser than, say, in a country like UAE where we are now. So
mm,
this also has a huge impact, because, for example, when, I mean, uh, when somebody knows, okay, this child is autistic, how they will relate will be
mm,
different versus
mm,
they don't know they are autistic. They just think that, this child is funny. Then that's when, like, bullying and things like that happen. You start to make fun and all. That is because, not because you're a bad person, but you just think this person is being, silly, but,
mm,
or
yeah.
like, doing something inappropriate. So I think awareness is critical, and I think more and more organizations across the world are increasing, special needs awareness. And here I see, I mean, in UAE especially, I see there's a lot of effort, a lot of programs. I'm not saying that we don't have stuff like that in Sri Lanka, but overall, as a country, people are
Mm,
more aware. And when people are more aware, there's greater tolerance, and then there's greater, what's the right word? I mean, assistance, or they tend to help the child as opposed to make fun of the child, or, do something which is not really helpful to anyone.
mm. So basically, Mary, what I try to see every time. There are people who are, I would say, put their child into different activities, daily activities, and some have pushed their children to regular studies. So, do you think that when the children are of special needs, they actually, like I have heard and I have interviewed few children who are of ADHD thing, but they are very good in studies and they are making their marks even, in their fields in computers and AIs and all. But mostly what I have seen, people, they are here in India, they are, putting their children into regular schools and trying to get them the, as much as, education. But is education is necessary, the, mainstream education is necessary for them, or, if I say artistic things are required for them, what type of education should they go for?
Okay. Well, I can't give a blanket answer for that. What I'll say is this. First of all,
Mm,
because each child's scenario is different,
correct,
the
yeah.
level to which a child can progress in traditional education, the way we know it, is
Mm-hmm.
itself different. Because you
Correct,
see,
yeah.
now let's talk about children who are not on the spectrum or special needs. Just, I mean, no, what we call normal
Mm.
kids. If you,
Normal
if
kids,
I may
yeah.
use that word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even in a normal kid, I mean, two normal kids, the capacity to learn, capacity to excel in academia is not the same, right? We know
Mm-hmm.
that. Everybody cannot
Mm-hmm.
be first in class. Everybody cannot get 90s in
No, no.
subjects.
Mm-hmm.
So the same principle applies here. But something that I would like to add here is special needs kids, I mean, they have found that their brains are different. Let me explain this in a way that I think majority of the people will understand. Think of it
Mm-hmm.
as roads, okay? Now, in here in UAE, we have this famous Sheikh Zayed Road in Dubai, which has 6 lanes one way and has 6 lanes the other way. So it's 12 lanes there.
Yeah.
In the case of special needs kids, they have, most often than not, I'm not saying everyone has, but most often than not,
Mm.
they have a Sheikh Zayed Road. But at the
Okay.
same time, they have certain other areas where it may be like a road where only a bullock cart can go, a remote area in a village.
Yeah.
Now, whereas in most normal people, they'll have two lanes this way, two lanes that way for most things. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why we are average. You understand what I'm saying?
Correct.
But
Yeah.
these kids tend to be where I mean, most of them, they're not, they have that Sheikh Zayed Road, that area that they really, really can do well. So in my son's case, it's mental math. And it's the job of the parents to figure that out. And it
Hmm.
might take some time, or it might be, in my case, it was easier because it was related to maths. And you see, maths is something that you learn in school. And I will relate that how it actually happened and how we got to know that in his case.
Hmm.
But the parents have to
Hmm.
be, what can I say, very observant. One of the things I started to do was I started to observe him a lot. And I told my wife also, observe him, look at everything he does.
Hmm.
And we need to take cues, because it is, you see, if it is a special needs child who is not going to do very well in certain academic areas,
Hmm.
then we need to identify that one area that they are good at and help them to be the best version of themselves in that one area. And then that can be their profession as well one day. So,
Correct.
you see, that's how you help the child, because these kids are not jack of all trades. They
Correct.
cannot normally do everything well. If you have 8 subjects in school, they are not going to score well in all 8 subjects. Even my
Mm-hmm.
son, it was the same. I mean, we tried different subjects to see what works for him. So you need to be open-minded. You can't be dogmatic. You need to experiment and figure out what works for your child, because your child is unique in the issues that that child has, if that child is special needs. That's what I would say.
So, Manu, I have even a experience with me. Like if I say ki I've been blessed with a normal child. So when he was growing up, he was a little kid. One of my friends suggested we try to give him more perspectives in life, more give him more areas to develop in. So if you will teach him four or five or six things simultaneously, in a certain period of time he will pick any of it, you know so you have to be observant when your child is growing up,
Exactly.
and you have to pick one thing from it, so or he himself or she
Yeah.
herself can pick it up.
I want to add something. Actually, my wife is also close by. She gives me pointers when I'm kind of probably saying not the full story. So she's helping me out here.
Okay.
One of the things is what she was telling me is, as much as we focus on that one area, sometimes that
Hmm.
one area may not help that child to have a normal life with normal people. So there are
Correct.
some areas where they may not be very good at, but you have to work at them, especially if they are like life skills. You see,
Okay.
I'm not talking about if science is not your thing, okay, you may not want to focus on science, but what I'm saying is if it's a life skill,
Hmm.
then you got to work at it, because it may be social, social interaction, social
Hmm.
integration.
Hmm.
You need to identify what are those areas. And now some of those areas are non-compromisable. You cannot not have those, because the moment you don't have those, you're going to expose your child for, unnecessary laughter, bullying, all kinds of things like that. So that's
Hmm.
where, even if it's difficult, now, one of the things that my son found difficult to do was to be assertive. Okay.
Okay.
You see, I'm not saying this because he's my son, but he is what you
Hmm.
call a nice child. He is, most people like him
Hmm.
the more you associate him, because he comes out as someone who's very kind and empathetic. But then as a result, he finds it difficult to say no. I'll give an example. They will understand this. Now, this even, I mean, now when he came to UAE, he was 16, right?
Hmm.
Even after that, we have worked with him on some of the things. Like now, for example, we'll say the kids are playing. Okay, now when the
Hmm.
other kids know he is like kind, and you can kind of push him around a little bit. Say, let's say the ball goes under the car. All right,
Hmm.
then even if it was not him who put the ball under the car,
Hmm.
they'll say, okay, you go and bring it. And my
Hmm.
son, because he doesn't want to say no, he'll go. Although it was
Hmm.
so, every time he comes up yucky with his clothes, every time
Hmm.
he's the one who's gone under the car. So we now, for example, my wife has taught him, no, if you put the ball, it's your responsibility. If they put the ball, no, you don't go. Let them, the one who put, go. And then
Hmm.
he used to say, like, what? Then they'll say, so, these kids are innocent. So he would say, then they will not play with me. He said, doesn't matter, you come home. So he did that couple of times. And then after 1 or 2 days, they come searching for him. So then we
Okay.
said, see, they want you. But if you give in easily, people
Hmm.
will take advantage. Not because they're nasty.
Correct.
That's the way the world works. If you can take advantage, people take advantage. So it's not because they are bad people, but that's the way. And so things like that, to be assertive. Sometimes, now that was a skill that was difficult to teach him because
Correct.
he felt, okay, no, let me be kind. No, no, it's
Hmm.
not being kind. You're being used now. So that difference to separate and tell and explain was not easy because especially when they have a heart, you see, most of these special needs kids, they have a heart of gold. They're very
Correct.
simple minded.
I know.
They're innocent. They are not malicious. They can, yeah, they don't know how to lie.
Correct. Yeah,
I
I
mean, my,
understand.
my
That's
son is
what.
terrible at lying.
Yeah.
He cannot lie. He actually will come and even tell, like, I don't want to tell a lie, and then tell the truth.
That's why what I say earlier, even in my, interviews, that the special children knows the special abilities. They don't have that malicious heart, so they cannot
No.
lie or do something, you know, if I say out of society thing. So, Mario, what would be the guidance for parents and caregivers from your side? Because, like other parents, even you have your own experience.
Yeah, so the thing is this, like the topic today,
Hmm.
special kids, special
Special.
care, they do require special care. As in, you see, a normal kid would grow up by themselves on certain fronts. Here we
Hmm.
need to handhold a little bit more.
Correct.
Yeah. So they learn by seeing. You see, there are three learning styles: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is meaning when you do things and learn. These
Hmm.
kids tend to be very visual
Hmm.
learners. Okay,
Okay.
generally, I'm not saying it's a rule,
Hmm.
but so showing things. Like when he was small, we used to use a lot of what are those cards?
Video orders.
Uh, okay, no, no, I made a small mistake there. What you was trying to say was, I said what my wife said a little wrong. As in, they need to learn by doing as opposed to seeing necessarily. Because seeing and then understanding what you need to automatically do is not something that they figure out themselves. I'll talk about the pot story. Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you an example of something. Now, this is a funny story as well. This happened after we came here. We being South Asians with the Sri Lanka,
Hmm.
we use these earthen pots. So the
Yeah.
earthen pots that we were using at home had cracked. Okay, then
Hmm.
the gravy seeps through. So I had bought two new
Hmm.
pots.
Okay.
And now in the kitchen, both the two new pots as well as the old pots were there. Now
Hmm.
he throws the garbage. I told him to throw the pots. He took the new pots and went and put it in the garbage
Okay.
because I didn't tell him which pots to throw.
Correct.
You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying? So you got to be
Correct.
very
Yeah.
specific. So because
Specific.
he's not bothered about pots. Daddy told me to throw the pots. I saw the pots. So what is he's not going to question, this looks new. No. Now for most of us, that would be obvious. This can't be
Huh.
thrown. This is new. But that's where, like, I'm not saying this is a common thread, but things like that can happen. In other words, you need to identify what are those areas. So where they are lacking or like can has to be improved and work with them.
Okay. So, how important it is to have an intervention and professional support in child's development journey. Because see,
Very
in
important. Yeah, go ahead. Continue, finish.
yeah, because in cities, it's actually, if I say it's little bit possible or it's mostly possible, but in rural areas there are children who are not able to do that. Because one of my experiences, I can tell you, one of my uncle's far distant uncle was an autistic child, and he was very expert in knitting the sweaters and all, though he was not able to read and anything else, but he was very much expert in knitting sweaters. So he used to knit the sweaters for himself, for the families and the people nearby. So that is what
Yeah, so that's his
intervention.
Shakeside Road. That's his,
Shakes.
and he will do it way better than somebody who does that as a job also sometimes. That's what
Mm,
you will find. So now I know of another person. He is a person in leadership in my campus. His son is very good with art. So
Okay.
and when you look at his art, like you wonder what kind of training has he had, and he says no, he's not had much training. He just comes up with this. So that's the thing. They tend to show like abilities sometimes which are like where it will make your jaw drop.
Hmm.
Like for example, now just few days back, my son came and said that he can do certain root extractions. He
Hmm.
said which computers can't do. I said, what do you mean computers can't do? He said computers have a restriction in the number of digits it can handle. He said I can
Hmm.
do larger than that. Then I said, how do you prove that your answer is correct if the computer can't get an answer for us to verify? Because we can't do what you're doing. He said, no,
Hmm.
I can teach you how to do it and get the answer. So, like, you see, that's the thing. So, we need to identify what are those. I mean, I'm not saying, now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everyone will have an ability like that, which is like world class. Not necessarily. But they will still have area of skill that they can use in as a livelihood and things like that, so
Yeah.
we need to help children with that, identifying those areas and polishing that.
Hmm. So, one thing is, I have just 2 minutes left. Can I have one another session after 15 minutes if you are free?
Sure, sure, sure.
Okay.
We'll continue.
Okay. Yeah. So, Madhu, there is one thing that, like, what keeps you motivating during difficult times? Because I understand,
Okay.
there would be ups and downs during his journey and all. So, how do you cope with that? And
Yeah.
how did you get the strength?
You see, we have seen results over the years. Okay.
Hmm.
And actually, one of the good things I think that happened to us was at a very early stage, one of the resources we came across was
Hmm.
about a world class autistic person called Temple Grandin. We watched
Okay.
a what you call a documentary, a HBO documentary. That
Hmm.
really motivated my wife because in that
Hmm.
they highlight the role of the mother. And at the end of it,
Okay.
at that end of 1 hour, 20 minutes or whatever, she told me, if this mother can do it, I am going to do it. And that determination with which she said that, it never died. It didn't die after 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. It was there for years. And the more she did, the more results she saw. And that was her motivation. So you see, it's easy to get disheartened if
Yeah.
you are not in it for the long run. If you got a special needs kid, you're in it for the long run. You're running a marathon. This is not 100 meters. So
Yeah.
you got to prepare for a marathon.
So one
But
of
you
the
will have
parent
the results
has,
of winning a marathon also. And that's what we see in Jaden. So that
uh,
continues to motivate you. So there will be wins, but for you to have wins, you got to put in the grind.
so one of
It
the
is not
parent
easy. I
has
wouldn't
to
say it's
be,
easy.
Mhm. So one of the
Yeah,
parent
even
has to
still, my
be,
wife does activities which is appropriate for his current state, and what we still find he needs to still improve a little bit more.
so,
Sure.
Madhu, what role can technology and innovation play in improving the lives of special children?
Yeah, and this is kind of connected to what you asked earlier. Also, you said, I mean, in cities and all, there are much more opportunities
Yeah,
and
yeah, this was the question.
intervention centers and things like that. You see, today with technology, you can be wherever. You see,
Hmm,
there's a lot of resources out there
hmm,
online, which you need to see what works for you. So again, you go back to the diagnosis, and based on the diagnosis, what kind of therapy or interventions you think works well. And you see, the mother is the best therapist. You
correct.
see, you see, because the thing is, the mother has one thing that no therapist has, which is the mother's love.
Hmm.
So, and that cannot be replicated. The commitment that comes with that, only a mother will understand, other people will only see. So, the mother learning what needs to be done and the mother doing it. Of course, now this becomes difficult if you are a career mom, but I mean, then you have to, I mean, settle for a therapy or you know to go to a center or whatever it is. But the problem with that, what we have seen is they are doing a job and they see many children. And the
Hmm.
more children they see, this becomes normal to them. And then that commitment and that, that whole zeal with which a parent would do for your child is different. They
See,
may be more knowledgeable, but you are more committed. So when you are knowledgeable with that commitment, I think sky is the limit. And that's what happened in Jaden's case as well.
Hmm.
In fact, I mean, I'll be very frank with you, and I mean, I can share this. I think my wife will not object to me sharing this. The reason why we have only one child was also because we wanted to fix him and do it properly, and not.
Correct,
She said,
because
I mean,
it's
I'm
a,
not going to waste my time. I can't be distracted with another child. Then I will not do what's
I
right for this
understand,
child.
and
So that
it's
was a decision that we had to
uh,
take. I mean, in ideal world, we would have decided differently, but then we don't live in ideal world and we got to adapt.
no,
So
Mario, I have seen in my family as well. I know someone in the family who's having a single child, and the child has gone through many things since childhood, these behavioral things and all, and other medical problems as well. So they are also having a single child because they have to concentrate on his
yeah.
well-being, rather
But of
than
course, I
putting
want to add
attention.
something else also. You
Hmm,
see, of course, a lot of teachers and therapists also have said if he had another sibling, there are
hmm,
some benefits because they start to play together, the
hmm,
whole sharing and things like. Not that I'm saying he has issues with sharing, but there are some psychological developmental help that happens when you have another child with which no parent can do, because they sometimes can feel alone because they don't have another person. Now my son did have this issue, so what we used to do was we used to expose him to a lot of kids outside because
hmm,
the only people at home was myself, my wife, and the grandmom at that time
correct.
because she was
Haha,
alive at that time.
hmm,
So there are certain things that we can't do which another child can do. So so it has its two-way thing, but you got to be committed. Special, I mean, I like your title, special kids, special
it's
care. Normal care does not work. You need to be
specific
up for
about
it.
the correct,
I mean, whether you like it or not, God has given you a challenge, whatever religion you believe
correct.
in. I mean,
See,
and you
because
got to be up for it. If you want to be happy at the end of the day, if you want to be smiling at the end of the day, you got to put in the grind. You got to.
See, because you are having a special child, and it would be your personal experience. How does society behave, Yana? Or if I say, takes you personally. Like if I say I have seen children who are of these type of needs are being, segregated or being secluded. If I say they're not invited to any birthday parties, the children parents are even not invited to these type of occasions. So, this is the first step, if I say, during the childhood, so that they can
Yeah,
interact.
you see, the thing is, I mean, you see, this kind of thing will happen. It also depends on the behavior of that particular child. Now, I'll give you an example. At one point, my son was in a special needs class. This was
Hmm,
when he was like at the kindergarten level.
hmm,
In that class, my son had the best behavior in terms of normal socially accepted behavior.
hmm,
Now, we also pulled him out of that class very quickly. You know why? Because we realized he's learning stuff that he didn't have before. Because when you're a child, you start to copy. You're
hmm,
like a sponge, you absorb everything. And sometimes, if you have kids who have behavior which is not socially acceptable,
hmm,
you start to copy that. So we started to see something like that. And then we asked that school to expose him to initially to a regular class as well as this. And then later we put him to a regular class. So,
hmm,
but of course, the thing is, the moment you put into regular class, then the bar is set much higher. Your social behavior and all that is expected at a higher level. And then
hmm.
if you don't measure up there, then you can get bullied. So it's a double-edged sword. So that's
Yeah.
where, as parents also, you got to navigate this very carefully. And
Hmm,
I cannot give you one solution saying this works. So do it this
hmm,
always. You got to see the current scenario and see what works best for your child. But like I said at the very beginning, awareness
hmm,
helps to better deal with these kids. Whether it's the parents, whether it's the caregivers, whether it's the colleagues in school. I mean, schoolmates, everyone.
hmm.
If they really understand, then people are going to be more tolerant, more accepting, and more accommodating, I would say. So awareness is important, and I think the organizations that are trying to increase awareness on fronts like this are doing a great job, and there should be more of that.
Okay. So, Mario, what are the common misconceptions that parents avoid while raising the child with special needs?
See, sometimes some parents tend to give up. They say, okay, you see, I've seen that also. I mean, where they just provide them with the very basic like food and clothing, and they accept like, okay, God was, nasty towards us or something like that. And they have a defeatist mindset,
Hmm.
and that does not help. Then you will see the worst version of the child.
Okay.
They don't take them out, they keep them in the house, so it's like a prison. And then you really make things bad. They just shout at them. You
Hmm.
can't shout and correct these children. It never
Correct.
works.
Hmm.
It never ever works. They will have self-condemnation, and that
Hmm.
will lead to most psychological conditions. So it really does not work. So I would say don't accept that kind of thing. I mean, of course, having said this, there are states like cerebral palsy or Down syndrome where the amount of things you can do is very little, but still there is something you can do. But in such scenarios, if it's those two scenarios, cerebral palsy and Down syndrome, I mean, there are certain things you cannot do because the child does not have the physical and mental capacity to do certain things. But then you got to work with what you can do. So what I would say is look at what is controllable
Hmm.
and control that. The uncontrollable, accept it as it is. But
Hmm.
in most special needs kids, there's a lot of controllable part. It's just that prematurely parents and maybe their friends or family might conclude a lot of things are uncontrollable, but that is just hearsay and old wives' tales, like kind of it's not based on science or any real evidence. So that's not doing justice to the child, and that's not doing justice to the parents also to come to that kind of conclusion.
Hmm.
You got to. That's why I said I go back to correct diagnosis, and then
Hmm.
based on the correct diagnosis, correct interventions. Very
See,
important.
yeah. So what I understand is like with every child, the situations can be different, but the
Yes.
basic things, because right now, because you are here to suggest us, so what should be the little, teachings you can give? These type of children should be educated like one, two, 3 points, like whatever you have done or ma'am has done, the 20
Okay.
activities a day.
One of the things is like, okay, let's talk about normal academics.
Hmm.
Normal academics, they may be learning at a slower pace. You see,
Hmm.
now kids in normal regular school, based on
Hmm.
curriculum, they
Hmm.
develop at a certain pace.
Hmm.
These kids, they may have the capacity, but they may not have the capacity to pick up things as fast as the regular kids. So then you
Correct.
need to accept that and work with the child's pace.
Hmm.
Not say, okay, this one cannot do. No, no, no. It's just that they
Hmm.
work slowly. And over a
Hmm.
period of time, they'll still master. So that is one thing on the academic side. But again, on the academic side, like I said before, there are some things that you will encounter. Okay, no, this is not really working at all. It's like, pouring water on a duck's back. So then those things, okay, once you have realized that, once you've tried, then it's fine. But
Hmm.
certain life skills and so on. Again, I come back to the diagnosis and what the child can do.
Hmm.
Based on the diagnosis, if you feel and what the literature says and what is out there, what they say is that yes, no, no, these skills they can have, but you need to do this kind of intervention. And there are different kinds of therapies as well.
Hmm.
Now, for Jaden, what really worked is what is called ABA,
Hmm.
applied behavior analysis. Okay, he's
Hmm.
shouting out. He knows now better
Hmm.
than me what we did for him. So anyway, so now that doesn't mean ABA works for everyone, or that's what they need. There are other therapies also, but
Hmm.
so you need to identify what those are and get the right input. And life skills, you got to work with them. You got to tell them why certain things are done,
Hmm.
because it may not be obvious to them. And then, because then only society also will not find them. Now you talked about how some of these kids don't get invited to parties and all. You see, I mean, sometimes you can't blame the parents who don't invite also, because they know
Hmm.
some of these kids, if they come, they'll mess up the party. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
they don't. It's not that they are like mean. It's just that they don't want drama. So therefore, they. So you must teach your kid how not to create drama. So what is it, that area that you need to work
Got
on?
it. Hmm.
Yeah. And also the other thing is this. with these kids, there's no point in telling things after something happens and later, now we'll say something that they should have done, they didn't do. Then after that, you tell them, okay, no, that's not how it should have happened. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean next time they'll do it correctly. No, that's not how it works with them. You
Hmm.
see, when you tell them, they might understand. But
Hmm.
when such a scenario arises again at that time, while doing it, you have to correct. So, for example, we used to do something like this. We used to take him out to create certain social scenarios for him
Hmm.
and tell him. Now, for example, say we take him to a park, and now
Hmm.
he wants to play with a random kid there whom he
Hmm.
doesn't know. So he can go and
Hmm.
introduce himself. Now, when he introduces himself, he may make mistakes. Okay,
Correct. Hmm.
so we need to tell. Okay, when he after that episode, we tell him, okay, that's not how you do it, and next time also, okay, right now you can go and try with the other kid, and this
Hmm.
is what you need to avoid now. Okay, so that's how it works. If you like when they make a mistake, if you tell, okay, this is the mistake you did, they are not
Hmm.
going to remember that 1 week later and do it correctly. No, it doesn't work
Hmm.
like that. It is very immediate. The interventions are very immediate. I
Hmm.
hope I made myself clear with
Yeah,
that
yeah,
example.
yeah. I understood. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
if
that's
I,
the other thing. You see, sometimes now my wife is giving some input. She's saying, like, okay, for example, before we go to a restaurant, we
hmm.
prep him saying, okay, now we are going to a restaurant. In a
Hmm.
restaurant, there are going to be tables, there are going to be napkins. There, you
Hmm.
get what I'm saying? So we
Hmm.
prep him.
Yeah.
When you go to a beach, we're going to say, okay, there might be dogs that will be coming with the people. So don't
Hmm.
get scared. That's what it is. So you
Hmm.
got to prep them, prepare
Hmm.
them, and then still they'll make mistakes. But when they do, correct them then and there. And
So,
then,
Mario,
in the next attempt.
so
Yeah,
have you,
telling stories works with them.
okay,
If you in a lot of interventions, you will see a lot of storyboards. So telling
storyboards.
stories which
Hmm.
they can understand,
Okay.
pictures. Yeah, that's another thing. She used to, of course, this is a lot of work, but
Hmm.
she would take pictures of Jaden's head, put it
Hmm.
on like some of these. There are these books and things like that which are there, which are helpful. What are those called? Story cards and all, right? So
Hmm.
you take
Storybooks.
those, paste
Hmm.
it with his face, and draw
Hmm.
the rest of the person, and show like how the interaction is. So they have
Hmm.
a visual of what's going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Also, like simple things like say, you put his picture, show him that he's sitting, and say Jaden is sitting properly. So then he
okay.
understands. Okay, right. That's what I need to do next time. And
Okay.
then another thing that really worked was that's part of ABA actually,
Hmm.
rewarding. You do this, we are going to give this. So it's like a carrot thing, but it works. So you need to identify what is the reward they want. In my case, because he likes numbers, it was numbers that we used to give. We used
Hmm.
to go to bookshops. Whenever we used to see plastic numbers, we used to buy all the numbers. If it looks different, even if we have numbers at home, we'll still buy. Because when you give him a
Okay.
number, he's happy. Or when we take him to a lift where the numbers are changing, that's a reward for him. So you need to identify. And
Okay.
I'm not saying that's a reward for everyone. Because he
Uh-huh.
likes numbers, this was a reward for him. So that's why you need to understand your child, see what works for him, what rewards they like, and work with them based on their liking as well.
Maybe years back when I was a young girl, I read somewhere that reward works much effectively. I read somewhere in an article, it was an article written by Benazir Bhutto. When their children were young and they were in the prime minister's house there in Pakistan, sometimes children used to pick the calls, and Mrs. Benji Bhutto used to, teach her children, like, if you are behaving properly, talking to them properly, or picking the call, properly, they would be rewarded with something. That something could be different.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
reward is
yes.
such a thing that is always inspiring.
Yeah. Also,
Hmm.
just my wife had another point. What she said is that doing these activities now, my wife used to do 20 activities for a day.
Correct.
That can be stressful to the child. So, therefore, one of the things that she used to also do is give about like 1 hour, one designated hour for him to do whatever he wants,
Hmm.
just to let the frustrations out. Because when you subject them to these activities which are to correct their behavior, because that's not something that comes naturally to them, they find it stressful. So then they can manifest in different ways.
Hmm.
So in order not for that not to happen, my wife would say, okay, right now, this is your, chill time. You can do whatever you like. And
Hmm.
at that time, he would do just random things. We would not question what he does. And
Hmm.
it's a way of, you see, it's like an athlete who trains hard and then
Hmm.
sleeps, say, a certain number of hours before he trains hard again. So the
Correct.
same thing applies to the brain as well. So that's another thing. You cannot overload the child also,
A few months
whatever.
back,
You see, now, for
I have.
example, he used to do things like talking alone, which was not something that we would encourage. But during
Hmm.
that 1 hour, he can do that. After that,
Okay.
no. You
Okay.
get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
things that we considered were, of course, we didn't expose him to outsiders at that time, but
Hmm.
he could, do it in his own time. But it itself, that activity, what he's doing, activity as in it's something that comes natural to him, which we don't want
Hmm.
him to do, but we would allow him, and that would be a stress release. Therapists would tell you that.
So,
Yeah,
if I
one
say
hour,
that
one and a half hours, you can do that.
20 activities which are you are talking about, recently I've interviewed a child who's a Paralympic. He was unable to move here from one place to another. So during COVID times, his father dedicated him his time with him and did 20 activities a day. He was telling me that thing, like how he has started in doing swimming and all. He has recently participated in in a competition held in Germany, and he got gold over there. And he's a very, I would say, like a special, not special child. Bodily, he is not so active, but mentally, he's very sound. So there is one question, Mario. What is the right age to tell those children that who they are, so that the acceptance should come to them as early as
Yeah.
possible?
Well, in our case, we did it. It depends on the child.
Yeah.
We did it after about 16. He was about 17 when we told him that. You see,
Hmm.
the thing is, it's important that you need to identify the child's mental growth to share
Hmm.
this, because it should not bring self-condemnation. What
Hmm.
should come is, okay, I'm different, so therefore I need to do certain things differently, which is a positive thing that you take out. So you need to know at what age your child is ready. In our case, we did it at about 17. He was just close to
Because.
18.
Hmm.
But it was not like everything was told in one day or a period of time. We broke
Hmm.
it down little by
Hmm.
little, and certain aspects of that we would tell later. My wife would say, no, no, that part we'll tell later. Because
Hmm.
it's like, even if you're hungry, you're not going to take a plate of rice and put everything, you're not going to open your mouth and put everything once, no? You're going to eat little
Correct.
by
Huh.
little. So it's like that. So this is, in a way, it's not bad news, but it's unexpected news. So
Hmm.
you got to mentally prepare them so that they take it positively and not negatively.
Because
So,
in
I
if
mean,
I
they
say.
they need to be at an age where they understand how. That's what I will say. They shouldn't be too
Hmm.
young. That will not help, because then
Okay.
that can bring self-condemnation.
Because when we discussed earlier, like if we say about bullying, the children who are normal, if they are playing with them, or those normal children are, bullying them, so they should have that. I guess they should have that thing that they can speak about, that we are not, normal like you. We need special care or something like that. So this.
Yeah, but that also you can do if the child also understands what you're talking about. What if the child also
Yeah.
doesn't understand what you're talking about? So that depends on the scenario. But what we used to do
Hmm.
was, rather than get him to do that, we
Hmm.
used to give him coping mechanisms. Okay, when this happens, do this. Don't say
Hmm.
that. Do
Hmm.
this. Or alert the teacher this way.
Hmm.
Now, I'll give you an example, something that happened when he was in grade one. Okay. Now,
Okay.
you in classes, you have monitors,
Yeah.
the teacher
Hmm.
appoints a monitor.
Yeah.
Now, this so happened that he came to this school newly, right? And this
Hmm.
boy was the monitor. He was the second in the class, I think, until Jaden joined. The
Hmm.
moment Jaden joined, Jaden became second and he became third. And he was,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, Jaden became first. Okay. So,
First. Yeah.
and this, I mean, kids also can be a little jealous, but that's not harmful. But the thing is, what
Hmm.
happened was, because he was the monitor,
Hmm.
and Jaden was very, unassuming. Um, he had told him, he had told Jaden something like this during the interval. He had said, "You stand there and wait." Now,
Hmm.
just because he's the monitor, he has no right to get the child to stand and
Obviously.
wait in a
Huh.
particular place. Teacher was not there at that time.
Hmm.
So he had stood the entire time. And then later,
Oh.
when he came home, he knew something was wrong. He told us. Then we said,
Hmm.
no, look here, yes, he's monitor, he has an authority, but this, you should understand, is outside that. He's going above that.
Ah.
So, but it was difficult for him. But at least we made him realize that that was not on. That boy shouldn't have done that to you.
Hmm.
But because that he was doing because of some other reason, because you now suddenly became first in class.
Hmm.
So uh, to make them realize that, and then he would ask like, why is he doing that? I didn't do anything wrong to him. No, that's their simple mind. So
Hmm.
but we have to see the world is not as kind as the way you think. And
Correct.
the world, don't expect that also. Something that I always used to say is, I'm not saying the world is terrible, but don't always expect the world to be like you. No.
Hmm.
Okay, they are, a lot of people can be way more worse than you. So you need to not be aggressive but be assertive. So the whole principle of being assertive, saying,
Hmm.
my yes is a yes, my no is a no. It takes time, but you got to keep working at it. You will get results, but it'll take time. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
frustrating because you want to see results faster. But I told you it's a marathon. It's not 100 meters. So
Hmm.
parents, caregivers have to be in it for the long run because you care about the child. I mean, it's your child. So you have no choice in the matter, I think.
I guess in these difficult times or in this situation, one of the parent has to give his or her whole time to the child so that he can be raised well.
Yeah. Now, when you say whole time, now my wife just added another point. Doesn't mean that you got to do this 365 days.
Hmm.
Sometimes 2 or 3 days, my wife also will take a break, but that's just 2 or 3 days, and then she'll get back for another two,
Hmm.
3 weeks, and then again another
Obviously.
2, 3 days. So, you're also human. So,
Huh. It
it's
should
not
be in
that
a
you're
cycle
expected to be like a
actually.
computer, but
Hmm.
you got to keep the goal in mind and keep moving forward, keep making progress. You cannot give up,
Correct.
because you give up means you're giving up on the child, and then you're not, you see, they need help. So if
Hmm.
your hand is not strong, there's nothing for them to cling on to. Your hand has to be strong. It's very
Hmm.
important.
So, is he able to keep his money safe or something like that? Have you taught him about that?
Yeah, so I mean, saving money, finances. Now, these are things that you have to introduce when they are at a certain age. Actually, right now we are doing that because
Okay.
I mean, simple things, because they tend to take things for granted. Everything is there. You open the fridge, it's there. Yeah, but how did that happen? That's because you have a job. For that you need to get qualified. So you got to teach them. Sometimes you have to teach them these at a later stage than a normal child, but you got to, because it also, again, I mean, come back to what is their capacity and what are the things that you can reasonably expect from this particular child. Because expectations from every child will not be the same,
Hmm.
because their starting point is not the same. You got to
Correct.
understand,
Yeah.
and their condition is not the same. So, but you got to keep working at it. I mean, even still now things like what you're saying, one of the things that we are looking towards doing is getting him to live separately very soon, meaning not in our house but separate somewhere else. So I've
Hmm.
told my wife now, he likes to eat dal. We are also Sri Lankan, so we eat a lot. I said, you're in UAE, one day your life partner might not know how to cook dal. You better learn how to cook dal for yourself, my friend. So
Hmm.
now,
Hmm.
during this summer, he's going to learn how to cook. Okay,
Correct.
so
Yeah.
you got to work at this. So it's never done. You got to keep, and you got to make them independent. Now, for example, now we live in Ras Al Khaimah, so he has gone many times to Dubai with us in the car. We have gone in the bus before we got a vehicle. So
Hmm.
one thing is, okay, right now you come alone in the bus, but we are waiting
Okay.
at the other end. But you see, like
Hmm.
that. Then next thing would be, okay, let him fly to Sri Lanka alone. You get what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So like that,
Yeah.
you got to do these things because these are life skills. And
Correct.
at the right time, you got to introduce them to this, because if
Hmm.
not, I mean, no matter what we do, we are still going to, we are going to leave this world, right? We are going to go. And
Huh,
when
you
we
have to.
go, they must be at a level where they can take and run their own marathon or their own 1,500 or whatever it is by themselves.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I always tell him. You got to play ball alone. Right now, you're playing ball with us, but you
Hmm.
got to play ball alone. So you got to make them responsible also, not when they're too young. Now, these are
Hmm.
conversations we have now.
Hmm.
And so when you tell them the reasons, they understand.
Hmm.
and that understanding also is something that we have built over the years. So, you're working with your own fruits and, expanding horizons. But um, there is a lot of work to be done. So
Hmm.
you need to identify what are those. So now what we do is, okay, we still try to look at, okay, right, he's 19. What are the things that a 19-year-old would do differently and what is he doing differently?
Hmm.
So teach him those now. Now he's at an age where, like, next thing would be he would, these people are naturally attracted to the opposite sex and things like that. So
Hmm.
how do you handle that? What are the
Hmm.
do's and don'ts? So all of that we teach. So and it's never really ending. I mean, you got to keep developing those skills.
Hmm.
Yeah. We one of the things is we send him on camps. Like, we are Christian, so we have a lot of Christian camps and things like that happen. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's like 3-4 days. So we know it's
Hmm.
a trusted environment and nothing will bad will happen. Of course, that's important. The parents have to
Hmm.
check that. So these are in a church environment, and I mean, we are very sure that nothing like that will happen. And so during that time, everything he has to do alone. Nobody's there with him other than the
Hmm.
people who are there. So sometimes
The
we
people.
brief the person in charge there. He has
Hmm.
this. So they keep an eye, but we say, don't get involved. If he needs help, only you help. So,
Correct.
and you are, I mean, with sometimes you got to drop people in the deep end to find out that they can swim.
Hmm.
So little things like that. These are also like opportunities to drop them in the deep end, opportunities to send them on a camp or a weekend they are on their own. So then they've got to keep things in order, in place. But at home, everything is done by the mother and the father. So they,
Correct.
they they need to move out of that. So
Hmm.
now, one of the things that we just recently discussed was getting him to live alone. And I said, don't take him food. No, he has to. I said, so first teach him to cook for himself so that he
Hmm.
can manage. Because there are enough boys, men who, live by themselves. So they go to
Correct.
university, they manage in their dorms. So how do they do it? So you got
Hmm.
to also come to that same level
Hmm.
you know so I think it's, you got to have milestones of growth. Even, I mean, he's 19, but still we have things that we're working on. It's not done.
Hmm.
I'm not here talking as if somebody has done it. We are
Hmm.
doing it. It's
You
just
are
that we
doing it.
have
Yeah.
done it for now 17 years, so we can talk a lot about it, but we are still
Hmm.
doing it. It's a lifelong commitment. It's your son, it's your daughter, it's your flesh and blood, so
Yeah.
you got to have commitment.
Months back, Madhu, I've interviewed a child who was a ADHD one. There are videos in the internet as well. So he
Mm.
is very well in piano. He plays piano, and he is regularly going to a hotel where he plays piano for 4 or 5 hours.
Brilliant.
So I just asked him, ki, how do you communicate and how do you, go to the metro and do you take the special seat for it? What answer he has was, surprised me for my life. If I say, why do you think that I'm a special child? If I can play my thing, then I can go anywhere. And if people ask me or offer me to have that special seat, I always decline it. Okay, I can manage myself. Don't, offer me a special seat for that. So they have,
Yeah. So
that,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, so that person was having that much of confidence. Their parents had
Exactly.
worked so well with
I
him.
was going to say that word. It's a case of building confidence. You see,
Hmm,
confidence is something that, I mean, even in let's forget special needs, even in a normal child, when they go for an interview,
hmm,
confidence is something that an interviewer or a potential employer will fall in love with. They will offer you, I can relate from my own life, stuff like that. I don't want to get into that stuff today, but what I'm trying to say is people easily fall in love with confidence. They want that.
hmm.
So give that to your child, because when they have that, sky's the limit. Make
Yeah.
them, confident. I mean,
Hmm,
even before I'll give you a small example. This is even before we found out that he was autistic. You see, when he was learning to walk, this
hmm,
was around 1 year plus.
hmm.
When you learn to walk, actually more than walking, you're falling. No, you're still
Yeah,
learning. So one of the things that I
exactly.
used to tell my wife is, so she would just quickly go and pick him up. I said, no,
Hmm,
no, 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 no. In life, he's going to fall. He has to learn to get up. You
hmm.
go near him and prep him to get up. Don't carry him. No, then he'll get used to somebody carrying him in life. What I say is go, because I've seen actually, I mean, when I say, I'm not trying to say something racist, but in a positive way, I've seen parents who are of white skin, they don't
Hmm.
go and pick children. Hey, get up, get up, get up. Sometimes, they have 2, 3 kids, they fall, oh, okay, oh, you get up and come. So that I mean, it's not a lack of care. They
Hmm.
they train kids to,
They face their children,
mind them.
huh?
I mean, fend for themselves. So
Correct.
I used to tell, I know you love him, but this is not going to help him long term. This is short term gain, long term loss. No, you go. What I used to do is get up. I pretend as if I'm holding his hand, and at
Hmm.
last minute I'll let go for him to get up. So,
Correct.
that's what you need to do, because they have to learn to do it, because then in the long run, you have done more service to them. Although somebody might think, you're being hard. No, but you got to, at each stage, you got to build them. So this
If
was
you
way before he was even
visualize
diagnosed.
if you visualize that face of a child who is often falling down and trying to getting up, so the moment he will get up by his own, the confidence which comes in his
Yeah,
eyes, you can just
there you go.
speculate it and remember that for the other time if he is falling down, he knows that he can get up and go straight.
Exactly. So you got to, I mean, think what's best for the child. Always look at what's best for him, what works best for him, not necessarily what's convenient to us, what makes us feel good. No, always from the child's perspective, and long term, always long
other
term win.
Other than therapies, Mario, is yoga beneficial for child's attention and all? What do
You
you
see, the
say?
thing is, yoga is something that will calm your mind. So if you can train the child to, do that,
Hmm.
then that can help. Meditation, yoga, all of these things are things that calm your mind, and these things help you to have better focus. It could
Hmm.
even be spending time in your own religious belief. I don't want to suggest one particular method over the other, because sometimes
Hmm.
some religious beliefs contradict with the other. So, I mean,
Correct.
so I'm not going to say this is right or that is right, wrong,
Obviously,
or
the
whatever, because
families
each
have
one has their
different
own
religious beliefs.
religious beliefs and so on.
Hmm.
So, so uh, yeah, another thing is they need to exercise.
Exercise.
The positive hormones that are created in your mind as a result. Because I'll tell you something, that on days that he has like mood swings and all that, it sometimes is because he has not exercised, he has not done his walk. The moment he
Hmm.
does walking and all that, or swimming, or moods are all back to normal. So
Okay.
sports, or when I say sports, I don't mean competitive sports. It could be walking,
Hmm.
it could be swimming, it could be playing badminton with some friends. Very
Hmm.
important for this. That sweating out also helps in their mental well-being and growth. Very important.
The competitive sports, if I say, it has come in last 2 decades in wider picture. Otherwise, people used to, if I say, children used to play in streets or in their localities. The conception of professional sports has a different meaning. A normal activity, if I say normal sports, is
You see, the thing
much
is this,
important.
some kids will, now, for example, Michael Phelps, the guy who has
Hmm.
won the most number of gold medals at Olympics, is
Hmm.
ADHD.
Okay.
Now, but that's his story. That's
Hmm.
not necessarily every special child's story.
Correct.
You see,
Yeah.
now, even things like, now some people are more athletic than others. You can see this from the time they're small. Some kids are athletic, some kids are not. So if they're not very athletic, what their bodies can do and what compared to a child who's athletic is
Hmm.
different. So you got to accept that. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, you can work on it to some extent, but then
Hmm.
some are very good at athletic stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
in competitive sports. So now, so Michael Phelps is a ADHD example of a ADHD child who went on to set world records, which I don't think will ever be broken. Especially the
Hmm.
number of gold medals he has won. I think he has won 23 gold medals or something across 3 Olympics or 4 Olympics. He's got some crazy record like that.
Hmm.
So, but that's his story. I mean, if you look at, he's one thing is very, he has a very big physical structure. He used to eat a lot. I mean, his diet was like not of a normal human being. So, but
Okay.
that's his story. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Huh.
I've read a little. I can't
Every
remember the
child is
facts now. I
different.
forget. Yeah,
Huh.
Michael Phelps from Australia.
Yeah.
He is
Okay.
the one who is the most celebrated Olympian. He has the largest number of Olympic gold medals. So
Hmm.
basically now, but he also said ADHD. Now that doesn't mean all ADHD kids are like him. You get
Hmm.
what I'm saying? So that's
Yeah.
why you need to understand where is your kid and what is it that they. So it takes a little time to figure that out, but then work with them. So But like you said, competitive sports is not for everyone. Like,
Hmm.
but walking, swimming, stretching, gymnastics kind of thing is good for anyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So things that calm the mind, like yoga, meditation, praying in your religion, all of that can help.
Hmm.
All of this can have a place to calm your
Calm you
mind.
down. Hmm.
Music,
Correct.
not music which, like, like heavy metal kind of, that kind of music, but music that calms you, relaxes you, helps you to enjoy. And each
So,
one's taste in music is different. But you know now, for example, my son has, I tell him, like, jokingly, his taste of music is like our era. We never tried to push our music on him, but he
obviously.
tends to gravitate towards the 90s 80s music, but he's
Uh,
not from that era. So, but once they like it, I mean, that's it. So you allow
hmm.
them to develop. He likes some of the newer music also, but he generally tends to like the more sedate ones. So there
So,
you go.
Mario, I guess we have almost touched every points, and I'm sure that this conversation would be more useful and would be worthy even. So I would be looking forward to have some more discussions with you in coming times. And
Sure.
so for today, it is thank you, and I would say I'm really indebted that you took time to talk about that. And talk about your son as well, because people hardly talk about their own things about their own families as well.